I would short Bitcoin if there was an easy way to do it. That is what Bill Gates said in a 2018 interview with CNBC when the price of Bitcoin was near $10,000. Gates has been talking about the cryptocurrency for quite a while, and it's pretty obvious he's not a fan. With Bitcoin's price now soaring to $60,000 a coin, why is Bill Gates still pessimistic about the cryptocurrency, and why is he betting on a total collapse? I believe it's very important to hear the bear case for every single one of your investments, and in this video we're going to explore why one of the world's richest men is bearish on what has proved to be one of the best assets to own in the last decade, returning 436,000% since 2013. When I began researching this video, I wanted to see how Bill's opinion of the cryptocurrency has changed over time. The earliest clip I could find regarding Bitcoin was this May 2013 Fox Business interview with legendary investors Charlie Munger and Warren Buffett. Take a listen to what he says nearly 8 years ago.
Come sit in. Right. Good morning, Charlie.
Good morning.
I just had to get your thought on Bitcoin, this digital currency that's out there that people say, oh, it might be the next big thing. What do you think?
I think it's rat poison. Put him down as undecided.
Do you understand what they're trying to do with it?
No, but I regard it as deeply flaky.
Deeply flaky. Okay, Bitcoin. Bill, what do you think?
I think it's a technical tour de force, but that's an area where governments are going to maintain a dominant role.
Mm-hmm.
So back in 2013, Gates was pretty straightforward, calling Bitcoin a tech tour de force. If you're like me and didn't really understand what that meant, here you go. Essentially, Bill seemed relatively positive towards the Bitcoin project, calling it an impressive technological achievement that has been managed with great skill. But he didn't really elaborate beyond that. At the time of the interview, Bitcoin was trading for around $115. A simple $1,000 investment then would today been worth nearly $500,000. He did share, however, that the currencies, any currency around the world, will always be heavily controlled by governments. Not really the strongest of revelations, but it did cast some shade on his overall opinion, suggesting that even back then, Gates was skeptical that Bitcoin would be a replacement for the dollar. Now the next clip is Gates talking about Bitcoin in a 2014 Bloomberg interview where he elaborates more on his position.
The need to move money from place to place, the cost of doing so, the overhead, as you put it, makes me think, believe it or not, of Bitcoin, because some people have said, hey, Bitcoin is the answer to those problems. Are you a believer?
Well, Bitcoin is exciting because it shows how cheap it can be. Bitcoin is better than currency in that you don't have to be physically in the same place. And, of course, for large transactions, currency can get pretty inconvenient. The customers we're talking about aren't trying to be anonymous. You know, they're willing to be known. So the Bitcoin technology is key, and you could add to it or you could build a similar technology where there's enough attribution that people feel comfortable. This has nothing to do with terrorism or any type of money laundering.
So as you just heard, Gates never really bashes Bitcoin directly, but what he states is obvious if you read between the lines. He clearly is a fan of digital currency as it ties together with some of the projects he's involved with in Africa. Digital currency lowers fees and allows the extremely poor to have bank accounts and therefore gives these people the opportunities to take advantage of things like microloans, which in Gates' opinion promote economic growth and innovation. Gates also makes it clear that he's not a fan of anonymous payment systems as they don't really have a way to sniff out things like money laundering, terrorism, and other financial crimes. Now you can frame his comments here in a number of ways, but in my opinion, Gates is signaling that he's not a fan of the underlying technology that makes Bitcoin work. He clearly has a problem with the decentralized, pseudo-anonymous portion of Bitcoin, which is a big deal in the framework and foundation. Now we move on to one of the more recent clips from the same interview where Warren Buffett famously called the cryptocurrency rat poison. Take a listen to Gates' opinion here in where he makes one of his strongest statements to date.
Bill, Charlie and Warren have weighed in on Bitcoin. Do you own any?
Somebody gave me some for my birthday, and then a few years later I thought, hey, I'm going to sell that. So no. There's some really good technology in terms of sharing databases and verifying transactions that is talked about as blockchain. That is a good thing. Bitcoin and ICOs, I agree completely. It's one of the crazier speculative things where it's not an asset class, you're not producing anything. And so you shouldn't expect it to go up. It's kind of a pure greater fool theory type investment. So, you know, I agree. I would short it if there was an easy way to do it.
Again, Bill makes it clear that he's a fan of blockchain technology, but he says something in this interview that really shows his cards in regards to his true opinion. He states Bitcoin essentially has no true value, and that it's a pure greater fool's investment that you should not expect to go up. If you are unaware of the greater fool theory in investing, it's quite fascinating. Bill describes Bitcoin this way. The greater fool theory states that it's possible to make money buying securities, whether or not they are overvalued, by selling them for a profit at a later date because there's always someone who's a bigger and greater fool willing to pay a higher price. People often quote the 2008 mortgage crisis and the following recession as a pure example of this. Then finally, we have the most recent clip, a 2021 interview with CNBC.
Every day on this program, Bitcoin and how he thinks about the cryptocurrency in the context of climate change, seeing as how Bitcoin takes enormous amounts of energy to digitally mine.
I don't own Bitcoin. I'm not short Bitcoin. So I've taken a neutral view. I do think, moving money into a more digital form and getting transaction costs down, that's something the Gates Foundation does in developing countries. But there we do it so that you can reverse the transactions, so you have total visibility of who's doing what, so it's not about tax avoidance or illegal activity. But Bitcoin can go up and down, just based on the mania or whatever the views are. And I don't have a way of predicting how that will progress.
This time, Bill once again states indirectly that Bitcoin is a mania and that anybody with less money than Elon Musk should watch out. He never did officially short the coin despite his 2008 comments, and while he publicly claims to be neutral on Bitcoin, it's clear that in his mind he thinks it's a bubble that will boil over. So is Bitcoin a mania? One underappreciated aspect regarding the rapid rise in price is the fact that Bitcoin is actually really hard to short from an institutional level. This creates an asset that is unlike any other. Short selling or betting against a stock or security is actually quite complex, and the mechanics of such actions are really hard to interpret. While famous billionaires like Elon Musk absolutely despise short sellers, and with the recent GameStop fiasco, many more are now on Elon's boat, there is an argument to be made in regards to the market dynamics as far as short selling goes. Many believe that those bears are essentially keeping lids on supposed bubbles. Why or how this works can be argued from 1,000 different directions, but there is a hint of truth in regard to Bitcoin. It's an asset that you cannot short. It's simply driven by higher and higher demand and feeds into a theory of greater fool. You cannot bet against it. Now I'm going to throw an asterisk here because technically you can, with Coinbase and others offering ways to do it, but not in the way large institutions with significant amounts of money can short. These short services are tailored towards small, retail investors who unfortunately cannot influence markets, especially the $1 trillion Bitcoin space. This makes Bitcoin incredibly unique in the world of financial instruments. It's limited in supply by law, or code in this case, and has immense demand. These forces drive its price higher and higher, with no downward pressure from short sellers. Its market is purely demand-driven and has for years been pushed up by larger and larger endorsements, including Tesla, which bought over $1 billion worth of Bitcoin to keep on its balance sheets. Thank you guys for watching, and please make sure you hit that subscribe button if you enjoyed.